Hello, everyone. I hope you're having an amazing day, whether you're listening to this at the start of a busy morning, during a quiet evening, or somewhere in between. I want you to pause and take a deep breath. Life can get so chaotic. Work deadlines, family responsibilities, financial worries, and everything else can leave us feeling like we're barely keeping our heads above water. But let me tell you something. No matter what you're facing right now, God's plan for your life is greater than anything you could ever imagine. And His timing? Well, it's absolutely perfect, even when it feels like He's silent. Today, we're going to talk about trusting God's timing, especially during those tough seasons when nothing seems to make sense. To help us unpack this, we'll look at the inspiring story of Naomi and Ruth, a story where God's name isn't mentioned much, yet His hand is clearly visible in every detail. Let's walk through their journey and discover how God works behind the scenes, weaving hardship into blessing. Have you ever been stuck in a season where you feel like you're doing everything right, but nothing is happening? Maybe you've been praying for a breakthrough in your career, your finances, or your relationships. You're putting in the effort, staying faithful, but all you're met with is silence. It's like planting seeds in dry ground, hoping for rain and staring at a cloudless sky. I remember a story about a young woman I once met. She was in her late 20s, juggling 3 part-time jobs while pursuing her dream of starting a nonprofit organization. Month after month, she poured her heart into grant applications, networking, and planning. She prayed endlessly, but doors kept closing. One day, exhausted and on the verge of giving up, she told me, "Maybe God forgot about me." I looked her in the eye and said, "God never forgets His children. Sometimes He's just preparing the right opportunity at the right time." Months later, her perseverance paid off. An unexpected opportunity arose, and today, that nonprofit is changing lives. We've all been there, haven't we? That season of waiting can feel unbearable. But God's word reminds us that waiting is not wasted. In Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31, it says, "But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." Your waiting season is building something in you, strength, faith, and resilience, to prepare you for the blessings ahead. Now let's turn to the story of Naomi and Ruth, 2 women who endured unimaginable loss, yet found hope in God's divine timing. Naomi's story begins in the land of Moab, where she moved with her husband and 2 sons to escape a famine in Bethlehem. But tragedy struck. Naomi lost her husband and both her sons, leaving her heartbroken and with nothing. Imagine Naomi's pain. She had left her homeland full of hope, only to return years later with empty hands and a broken spirit. She even said in Ruth chapter 1, verse 20, "Don't call me Naomi," she told her people. "Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter." Can you relate to that? Feeling like your situation is so bleak that it's reshaped your identity? But even in Naomi's despair, God was working. Her daughter-in-law, Ruth, refused to leave her side. Ruth's loyalty and determination were a glimmer of hope in Naomi's darkness. When they returned to Bethlehem, Ruth worked tirelessly in the fields, gathering leftover grain to provide for them. Little did they know that God was orchestrating something miraculous behind the scenes. Here's the beauty of God's work in their lives. Naomi might have thought her story was over, but God had a plan to use her pain for a greater purpose. Ruth's devotion to Naomi wasn't just an act of kindness, it was a part of God's bigger plan. Ruth's faithfulness brought her to the field of Boaz, a man of integrity and compassion. Boaz, as their kinsman redeemer, not only provided for their immediate needs, but also restored Naomi's family line through marriage to Ruth. God's timing is woven into every detail of this story. Imagine Ruth, a Moabite woman, being welcomed into the lineage of Jesus Christ. What looked like hopelessness, a famine, the loss of loved ones, and financial despair became the foundation for one of the Bible's most beautiful stories of redemption. Through Ruth's obedience, Naomi's bitterness turned to joy, and God's promises were fulfilled in ways they could never have imagined. So, when you feel like God is silent, remember Naomi and Ruth. He is working behind the scenes in ways you cannot see, turning your hardship into a testimony of his faithfulness. Here's what's amazing. God didn't use grand miracles in Naomi and Ruth's story. There were no parting seas or fire from heaven. Instead, he worked through ordinary moments. Ruth happened to glean in the fields of Boaz, a relative of Naomi's late husband. Boaz noticed Ruth's kindness and integrity, and through a series of events, he became her kinsman redeemer, marrying her and restoring Naomi's family line. Do you see what happened there? In a season of famine, loss, and uncertainty, God provided in ways Naomi and Ruth could never have predicted. Through their obedience and faithfulness, God turned their mourning into joy. Ruth's son, Obed, became the grandfather of King David and eventually a forefather of Jesus Christ. What an incredible testament to God's faithfulness. If you're in a season of hardship, take heart. God's hand is on your life, even if you can't see it yet. Sometimes God delays our blessings to strengthen our character and deepen our faith. In James chapter 1, verses 2-3, it says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Your waiting season is not a punishment, it's preparation. God's delays are not his denials. Keep trusting him, even when the road ahead seems unclear." Life often takes us on unexpected detours. We have plans, dreams, and timelines, but things don't always go as expected. Maybe you've experienced this. Applying for a dream job only to be turned down, or pursuing a relationship that didn't work out. These moments can feel discouraging, but what if those detours are part of God's divine plan? Look at the life of Moses. He'd spent 40 years in the wilderness before God called him to lead Israel out of Egypt. During that time, Moses probably felt like his life was going nowhere, but God used those years to prepare him for his purpose. The wilderness wasn't a waste, it was training ground. In the same way, your detours are not dead ends. They are opportunities for growth and preparation. Proverbs chapter 16, verse 9 says, "In their hearts humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps." Trust that God's plan is unfolding, even when it looks different from what you envisioned. Finally, trusting God's timing often comes down to one word: surrender. Letting go of control is hard, especially when we're desperate for answers, but true peace comes when we surrender our plans to God and trust Him to work everything out in His perfect timing. One beautiful example of surrender is Eric Liddell, the Olympic gold medalist and missionary, known as the Flying Scotsman. Liddell chose to prioritize his faith over personal ambition. He famously refused to run on Sundays, even at the 1924 Paris Olympics. While many criticized his decision, God honored his faith. He went on to win gold in the 400 meters, a race he hadn't even trained for, setting a new world record. Liddell's story reminds us that surrendering to God's will can lead to extraordinary outcomes in your own life. What do you need to surrender? What plans or timelines are you holding on to too tightly? Trust that when you let go, God will take over and lead you to something far greater than you could ever imagine. I want you to think about this. What if the thing you're praying for is just around the corner? What if this season of hardship is God's way of clearing the path for something extraordinary? Remember that God's plans are always bigger and better than our own. Ephesians chapter 3, verse 20 says, "Now to Him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to His power that is at work within us." If Naomi and Ruth had given up, they would have missed the incredible blessings God had in store for them. And if you give up now, you may never see the full picture of what God is doing in your life. Trusting God's timing isn't easy. It requires surrendering your own plans and embracing His will, even when it's uncomfortable. But let me encourage you, God sees the end from the beginning. He's the master planner, the ultimate architect of your life. Your current struggle is just one chapter in a much bigger story. Let's go back to Ruth for a moment. She didn't know how her story would end, but she trusted Naomi's guidance and remained faithful. Because of her obedience and trust, she became part of God's redemptive plan for humanity. How amazing is that? In your own life, the key is to stay faithful in the little things. Keep showing up, keep praying, keep believing. God is working, even when it feels like nothing is happening. As Psalm chapter 46, verse 10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." Sometimes the best thing you can do is simply trust and rest in Him. As we wrap up, let's remember this. Your season of hardship is not the end of your story. God's timing is perfect, and His plans for you are good. He's working behind the scenes, orchestrating every detail for your ultimate blessing. Stay faithful, stay patient, and trust that He will come through for you. Let me leave you with this powerful verse. Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Hold on to that promise. No matter how tough your season may be, remember that God's timing is worth the wait. Thank you for being here today. If this message resonated with you, let us know in the comments. What is one area of your life where you are learning to trust God's timing? Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe for more uplifting content. May God bless you abundantly and give you the strength to trust His perfect timing. Have a great day.